everybody. Welcome to Revival Town Podcast. I'm Chuck Tate. That's Andy King.
Hey, how you doing, mate?
You know, I'm doing great because we have a full crew in the studio. It's a special night.
It is. We are on... Well, it's the first night of Mission Peoria Nights, but it's actually the second day.
Yep.
But tonight we've just had our first gathering of people coming together, not just from the Mission Peoria students, but also the community. Last year we did one night out at Rock Church where we invited everyone. But this year, every night we're opening it up, and
good crowd tonight.
Good crowd, yeah. It was great. Yeah. Felt good, and the band was doing good, and then we had my sister speaking.
Yes,
Rachel. Now, for those that are watching,
what a great start! I thought it was a perfect start.
For those that are watching on YouTube, Rachel is in the middle, but we thought we would get the cousins in. So if you didn't know, so obviously I just mentioned Rachel is my sister, but we have Vicky all the way from England. And then we also have Sarah, who was originally from all the way from England, but has lived here for 20 years or however long. How long is it?
10 years.
Oh, feels a lot longer, let's put it that way.
That is rude. That's true.
And so tonight we thought...
And she led worship.
And has led worship for all pretty much 10 the years you've been here.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd do something a bit fun and do like a family affair.
Yeah.
Does that sound all right, Chuck?
Right.
I mean, I ran it by you, but I don't know if you had much choice.
Yeah, right. And I'm the only speaker that's not British.
That's right. That's right. This week we did a post and we put all the speakers on and our media gal put, can anyone spot the non-British person? And it was Chuck. So for those that are tuning in for the first time since a Mission Peoria, let me tell you what's going on. This is a week at the Dream Center where we challenge youth groups to not fly overseas or go anywhere around the country, but to come right here in Peoria and do their missions trip here. And so we've created this over the years where it's not just a missions trip, but we add a bit of like a camp feel, a youth camp feel where at night we do celebrations, and it really just is designed to inspire the kids for the next day.
Yeah.
And so there's some highlights that we do. Things like we have this 20-foot prayer banner that students can come up and write their prayers on the banner during worship. And what we find is a lot of prayers are written about kids they see at the different sites that we're working with. But then we also start seeing prayers that they are writing about their own life. And we have guys and gals go in during the day and pray over them prayers. And so it's become a bit of a highlight. Cool. But one of the other things that we do is not only have great worship, but then we have a speaker each night. Chuck, you have preached most years, really. We can't get rid of you. But yeah, so we have a speaker tonight. It was Rach. Rach, why don't you just give us a bit of a, without doing the 45 minutes, why don't you give us a bit of a synopsis on the message tonight?
Well, as I was praying about tonight, I just kept thinking about when I was that age and what I was going through at that age too. But the theme is make a mark.
Make a mark.
Make a mark. So I wanted Jesus to make a mark on their life tonight, but I wanted them to know that He saw them, that He could save them, and that He could set them apart. And so that's what we talked about tonight, was letting them know that they are seen and known and loved, and that He has a destiny and a purpose for them beyond anything they could ever imagine.
It was a great job.
It was.
Very good job.
I took a lot of notes.
Did you get saved, Jeff?
Yeah, I rededicated my life.
Great.
And I'm going to preach the same 3 points Thursday.
Love it.
That's good.
No, but it really was. It was excellent. And I love how after the night ended, when the night ended, everybody broke into groups to go. They're discussing it right now.
Yeah, right now.
Unpacking it.
Yeah, because we there's some nights where we'll do like the typical altar call, but we've tried to really lean away from that a bit because there's a lot of emotion that can happen during an altar call, and it may be that an altar call isn't something that some of these churches do, and so we felt let's let the youth pastor take them on that journey. Did you see I dropped it in tonight, Jen?
Yeah, I picked it up.
Yeah, good. So it was a great first night, but now, Vicky, obviously you live in the UK, so you haven't done Mission Peoria as a student, but you have got kids here. Yeah. So why not, before we get into the three of you, why don't you tell us a bit about what it was like last year, especially with your kids doing it? Yeah. I know that Phoebe's doing it, but Judah's tagging along and getting it out of it. You know what I mean? Which is fine. Yeah. Why don't you tell us a bit about what it's like being a parent with kids in Mission Peoria?
Okay, yeah. So Phoebe, we actually came for half of Mission Peoria last year. We kind of Phoebe didn't actually do the full experience, but she came for like the days and the evenings, and she really, for us as a parent, we saw her journey with God just almost come alive from that 3 or 4 days that she came here. And for us as a parent, that was great, because that's all you want for your kids, isn't it? To have that relationship with God. Yeah. And for the whole year, she's like, "Oh, Mum, I really want to go, and Dad, I really want to go. You know, we've got to go next year." And we're thinking, "Oh, crikey, it costs us like an airplane ticket, you know, to get over there." But we saw that passion in her, and we wanted to keep that alive. So obviously, we've come out again this year, and she's having the full experience. Yeah. But for us as a parent, I mean, even tonight, I was kind of like standing at the back, and I could see her. And you try not to look at them, don't you? But I could see her, and she was just worshiping God, and that's, for us as parents, is like the best thing. And even Judah, I mean, he's 8, he's desperate to do Mission Peoria, you know, but he's got a few years to go yet. But even he was taking part. He started making notes of Rachel's preach.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, thanks. I'll steal them. But for us as a parent to have a kid here actually doing it, and then she will take that back to England, to her youth group there, and she'll be telling all her friends about it. I mean, she was so excited. They're probably fed up of hearing about it and going about it the last few weeks. But she will take that passion then hopefully back to her friends back in the UK. So
we need to get a few of them coming over.
Yeah, maybe we should kind of.
You know, we had a few. There was a few years where we had teams coming from Brazil.
Oh wow!
And which was really crazy, because normally we would be going to Brazil to help them. They were coming here. Wow. So that'd be cool if we could get a few Brits over.
She's actually missing her youth camp over there. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well let's talk youth camp. Rach, you talked a bit about youth camps. Chuck, you just got back from one last week. Tell us first about that.
2 days ago, I was at the Smoky Mountains.
Oh,
yeah, a camp called Eagle Rock. It was beautiful. And I didn't know anybody except for Aaron Hall, who's been on the podcast, him and his wife. And it was really, really kind of like a sabbatical for me. I didn't do all the things. I spoke a couple times, 2 nights. And
you weren't there as a student camper, right? It's a sabbatical.
No. So they brought me in to speak, and then I fell off the rock wall. And no, I'm kidding. But it was really remarkable. It was an incredible week. For me, it was so good just to get some peace. Obviously, this is a busy week with Mission Peoria. Next week is VBS at our church. There's a lot of things that are going on, and it was just really refreshing for me. And just to connect with some new people. And I mean, anytime like tonight, seeing kids at the altar with their hands up, just leaning in, like you said tonight, Rachel, just leaning into God and letting Him grab them, and seeing that for the, and at camp is usually, I mean, tonight was cool because it was first night and people were all in. And a lot of times at a camp like this, it's second, third night. By the last night, then everybody is. And the group that I was with, it was really special to see by the end of the week. I mean, just all the tears and them hanging on all each other, and seeing the Holy Spirit move. So it was cool.
We did something different this year. You mentioned it being, it's the second night, but the first night of MP nights, and that's because last night we did something different. We were doing like team building at a local park. Now, I haven't told you anything about this. So as we are doing this thing, there's a huge shelter, right? Like a picnic shelter that we could all get under. But we were showing them how to do Metro Kids, which is like VBS on steroids,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
we were showing them this, and then when it got to the story, instead of doing a kid's story, I preached for like 10, 15 minutes. So everyone's under the shelter, right? And then, I am not joking, mate, a torrential downpour, like lightning, thunder. And this is funny. As I'm speaking, I look up and there is a sign that says, "This is not a shelter when it's lightning." So it was one of those things. But we continued. Like 40 or 50 kids gave their lives to Christ during it. I kept looking for like trees coming down, and literally at one point I turned around and the whole grass behind me was like a river, like it was just flowing. And if you go onto the Mission Peoria socials, you will see kids just head diving into these
I
puddles.
saw 'em.
It
Yeah.
was crazy. But that was our first night, and you're right, normally your first night is what's this all about, but I think it set it up for tonight, and so kids really got into it. And I think camp, we've talked about this a lot on Revival Town. There's such great memories for me going to camp, even though the place was a dive, right? I used to go to a place called Bonsall Youth Camp, and I mean, it was a dive. It was an absolute dive. But there are guys that were in that time when I was there. One guy is now the national jet. What was the real term?
General Superintendent.
Superintendent of Assemblies of God
yeah.
for Great Britain.
Wow.
He's the guy who went to the King's and the Queen's funeral.
Wow.
So and he was in that youth, and many others as well. And I do think there's an element of Camp Mission Peoria where God can hit a kid like not normal at a youth group.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So, girls, why don't you tell us a bit about some of your highlights being together, but especially like if there was youth camp, even ACE teams, which is the same type of thing, which 2 of the 3 of you did at ACE teams, right? Vicky never did.
I asked about that today. Why
She did.
Why don't you tell us a bit about growing up and that type of thing together, and camps and things like that?
Kind of. I think the memory that I have growing up is we would go to the AOG
Oh yeah.
conferences in England. Massive thing. All the churches, AOG churches, would come together.
Like at a resort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would literally just be dropped off on the first day in the kids' church. And
Well, we were allowed to
You
walk
never-
across the thing by ourselves, didn't we?
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that. It was kind of a big thing.
but we would literally just be dropped off, and then we wouldn't see our parents until Friday.
This Saturday. Yeah.
See you, Mum.
We might get like a slush puppy. You know a slush puppy?
Oh,
we
yeah.
would get slush puppies every
Get
night.
a
Slush puppy every night.
With fries and vinegar.
fries.
I always remember the
Yes.
vinegar.
I could go for a
Chips and
slush
vinegar.
puppy right now.
Oh, man.
Right?
We had them last night at the shelter while the lightning was going on. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you know. There we
That
go.
was a highlight.
All right, let's forget camp a minute, right?
Tell us about camp. You know what? Let's forget about camp.
Let's forget about camp.
We haven't even
That
got
story
Tell
was
us some stories. Tell us some stories about the 3 of you. I know Vicky lives in the UK, but there's still a lot of stories of you guys growing
A
up.
lot.
Oh.
right,
You know, there's a lot of Mission Peoria kids listening. They've seen Rach speak. They've seen Sarah sing all the time. Nate is preaching tomorrow night, and he's got birthday boy.
Birthday boy.
Oh.
So not only is it the 200th edition,
It's his birthday?
it's his
Guess how old
birthday.
he is?
Well, check that
How
out.
old?
41.
41.
Tomorrow, 41 is going to come.
Oh, so why don't you give us some stories? Come on, girls.
Oh,
Well, I was always in charge.
it's very true. She has a
Because-
I was
nickname.
in charge.
I am the oldest.
Her nickname is the boss because
Yeah.
she is the boss.
Now, a lot of time, okay, so we grew up more like sisters than we did cousins.
Yeah.
So when we lived in England, okay, I moved here when I was 13. For those of you who don't know, we moved here when I was 13. So they were younger than me when I left. Like, what was it? 9 and 6 or something. But
And you don't have an accent, really.
No.
She
I
got
think-
rid of it.
Yeah, I did. I was like tired of people asking me to talk all the time. So I was like, I'm just changing it.
Okay.
But I can flow back.
Yeah, I think you do.
I can flow in and out.
She didn't.
But we would get dropped off at the church all the time because Dad would be there and their dad would be there. He worked at the church too. So we would then go like in the church and we would usually Sarah was the youngest, so we'd set her on the soundboard.
Play in churches. when
You
we
would
were
play church.
I would always
I
get
would-
the.
Of course, I was leading worship.
younger. Or the pastor's wife.
Or the
Yeah.
pastor's wife.
Yeah.
And then Victoria would be there watching the babies. And we would have ourselves a full on church service
until
Like for hours. We'd be
for
there all
hours.
day.
Wow,
But
that's
we just set
fantastic.
Sarah on the sound booth because
Wow.
I was always the one that had the most boringest job.
yeah.
Not saying that the sound guy is boring.
Wow.
He's very,
Whoa.
Hey, he saved my life.
Wow. Hey, wait a minute.
Sometimes the technical guys save your life.
Oh, what a shame. The microphone came down. Oh.
Sometimes they save your life. But yeah, I would always get lumbered with some really.
I used to have a good word too.
Wow. Wow.
In that empty sanctuary.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
So how cool is it to be together though tonight? You're flying over, and you're a pastor's wife, and you're speaking on the first night. You're leading worship, and you're married to the pastor of the church that you're in. He's the executive director of the Dream Center, who's putting on. I mean, that's got to be pretty cool,
Yeah.
right?
It's
pretty
I
always.
actually stood there tonight and I was kind of like.
You guys have made a huge
it is
impact. You guys have
actually-
made a mark.
yeah,
I think
it's
tonight was special.
Oh, look how you did that.
Yeah, tonight was special. I think.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
think so.
It's always good to be together because, like I
Yeah.
said, we're more sisters at heart than
Yeah.
cousins.
And
Yeah.
we speak a lot, even though we're.
Yeah,
we're
we
thousands
FaceTime
miles
and
away.
all the
We're
things.
so close.
They never FaceTime me, though.
Oh.
He always
Sorry.
feels left out.
Oh, it always has.
Man. Wow.
But then I remember that when we
That's
were
because
at
you're just a sound
church,
guy.
I'm just the sound guy that no one likes.
He,
I
yeah.
like
Remember
the
when-
sound guys.
We used to go for
They
kids
help me.
group at church on a Friday when Andy used to run the youth.
Yeah.
So the youth used to follow after Good News Gang, you remember?
Good News Gang. Eh?
Oh.
Good News Gang. That was
That
the
was
name of
it.
our kids'
Yep.
ministry.
And
The
I
Good News
always
Gang.
remember we used to kind of try and hang around to kind
For
of
youth,
save
and he would not let us stay.
Yeah, he's like, come on, it's time to go.
Get out.
Clearing us out. We just,
Yeah.
we
I don't
were-
remember that.
Yeah.
I was
Whoa.
too young.
You were the
Too
baby.
young, baby.
Yeah.
Did you
There
guys
was a
ever
few
get any?
things
Go ahead.
that I would get left out of. You two were definitely.
This is like therapy.
There's a lot of therapy that needs to happen between us
In
three.
the words of Rachel, Jesus sees you.
Yes. He saw you, Sarah.
Jesus saves us. You've been set
I need to
apart
go back
for this
and-
moment. For this moment, though.
You weren't buried, you were planted, Sarah.
Oh, man. Oh, that's funny.
boy.
Did you guys ever get in trouble?
Oh, okay. No,
Now, I will say, Sarah, probably
Most.
mostly at church. Usually, it was always funny because you just see Sarah's mom storming out of church and Sarah just dragging behind her with her arm, holding on, and you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But can I just add to that? There was a lot of times growing up where things would be blamed on me that
Therapy.
necessarily happened. I remember that there was one time that you guys had just moved over. No, you guys had moved into a new house here, the one in Molly Lane.
Oh, I know what she's going to say.
And my my aunt had very nice cream carpets in this house, and everyone came in with a soda pop. And someone, not me, but one of these, had left a soda pop, a Coke.
Shirley.
Don't blame it on Shirley.
She's not here to
my
defend
sister's not
herself.
here to- someone had left a Coke on the coffee table on the white carpet, and these two blamed it on me, and it
don't
wasn't
remember
even my fault.
Whoa.
So there was a lot of things
I
that
don't recall.
Man.
happened.
Hey, we're gonna go ahead and pray.
Okay, why don't we? We're gonna wrap this up But why don't you tell us a little bit about what Mission Peoria means to you? Because we've got a few different angles here. Parent as well, and preach tonight. Worship leader and not parent yet. I mean, as in kids doing it. Down the road they will, but
They're
yeah,
in
yeah.
the service.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
just
yeah.
not doing it. Yeah.
So why don't we just talk about what Mission Peoria means to you guys?
Me first?
Yeah, go for
Okay. I've watched Mission Peoria now since the beginning of it. But I think for me now, watching my kids do it, like Vicky said, last year my Ben did it for the first time ever. He was so nervous, like he called Andy the day before asking to go because he was so nervous, didn't want to go. And he had an encounter with Jesus, and like people were sending me pictures of him worshiping. And but like she said, as a parent, watching something ignite in your kids and knowing, like I talked about tonight, those camp experience that I had, or those times at the altars I had in those moments, they marked my life forever, right? That's why I was standing up there tonight, because call and destiny was put in me in those moments. So you just pray that over your kids. And now as a pastor's wife, for our youth to just catch that and to catch that fire and to see all of them tonight just worshiping their hearts out, it was just a beautiful thing. And I hope it does continue. And I love the aspect of, it's like camp with a mission, right? So they're serving through the day, they're pouring out and through the day, and then getting poured into at night. And I think it does change their life forever. There are kids that our youth pastor, our children's pastor, they went through Mission Peoria, and Josh couldn't wait for it to get back after COVID because it marked his life so much. And he is where he is now because of those moments at Mission Peoria all those years ago. So I'm thankful for the vision all those years ago, that it's continuing to happen within our city and changing our city.
Before the other two answer, you said something tonight I thought was pretty impactful. You said there was a season, a time, because your father was the pastor, you grew up in ministry, and your brother's older, right? All these things. And you said that you were looked at more than you were seen.
Yes.
Right? Can you unpack that a little bit?
I always said I would write a book. I think someone already has one though, called The Fishbowl, about pastors' kids' lives. But that's kind of where I feel like I have been my whole life. And I think even stepping into as a pastor's wife now, it's become an aquarium. It's like just this bigger eye on you, right? But people only see what they see. They don't really know you. So you feel like you're just being looked at and gawked at, but they don't really know what's going on in you or through you. And
what you've been through.
And what we've been through. And the pressure of a pastor's kid, right? And so I think they just saw it as more of a title and who we were instead of, or the title that we had, I should say, instead of the person that we were, that we had dreams and that we had visions for our lives as well, that it wasn't just riding the coattails of dad, it was things that God had placed in us as well. And we had our own pains and our own hurts. And so I felt looked at more than ever seen. And I think that a lot of times too, as pastors' kids, they think, oh, they'll be okay because they're pastors' kids. So we didn't get the one-on-one with leaders. Like, you know what I'm saying? We didn't get that time poured into us as much, I feel like, because people thought, oh, they're going to be okay. They're pastors' kids, right? So
that's good.
You just feel looked at, not seen, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. That's good. That's so true. I mean, I think what happens is there are people that have expectations for you as a pastor's kid that you have not agreed to, or that your parents may have not agreed to.
Yeah.
But you have to find out what God wants you to do.
Right.
And not worry about what anyone else thinks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's critical that for pastors' kids, they get their own calling, their own destiny stamped on their life, not the parent or family. And I think there's a flip side to that as well. I think sometimes pastors' kids can blame that and not see what they've got. You know what I mean? And so they blame, I'm always looked at, but yet the flip side of that is God's placed you in a position where a lot of people would long for.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's that whole perspective of how you deal with that and not trying to be labeled. I think that's the biggest thing, being labeled for parents or churches you're a part of, or even like Dream Center. Like when I go and speak at churches, it's, oh, can you do the Dream Center thing? I'm like, well, I can, but I do talk about other things. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know. So let's get back onto the. Why don't we? Because Vicky's talked a little bit.
Yeah.
So Sarah, which is unusual. Sarah hasn't spoke much. Wow. So why don't you just tell us a bit about what it's been like?
Sit down.
Mission Peoria for you.
So I have both served Mission Peoria as a leader and a leader alone, and then I've also served as a leader and the worship leader, and I've now come to the point where I'm just worship leading because it gets very crazy and chaotic. And for me, I love Mission Peoria because I just love seeing the kids. They come in on the Monday and they're just kind of like wide-eyed and they're like the awe of it, and then they get into their evenings, and like Chuck said, like as the days and the nights go on, they kind of seem to kind of get a little bit more on fire. And I just love seeing like the kids and how they kind of progress through the week. They come in like kind of like, oh well, we're gonna start off the service projects like really kind of gung-ho and kind of get it done, and then like the service projects, they're like, you know, there's a point in the week where they're tired, they're exhausted, it's hot, and they're like, oh, we don't want to do this anymore. But then they come in on in the evening, and they just get refilled up, and to then go back out on the mission field, I guess. But I just love, from a worship leader point of view, I love seeing the students, not only the students, but also the people that come in from the public, just worship full out. They're not bothered about who's around them. They're not bothered about like going crazy like they did tonight, which was awesome. I feel like the first night they're never that hyped, but they were hyped. Just seeing them come in, go from like the hypedness and just kind of all out kind of praising, and to like on their knees, just literally worshiping and just giving it all to God and all the things that they're going through. I love the prayer banner. That's one of my favorite things. When we introduce the prayer banner, and that just then gets flooded with just prayers about themselves, the kids that they meet during the week, just things that they're going through. And for me, just seeing that is just awesome. And then hearing the stories years and years later about how they can pinpoint like one specific thing that happened at either a church camp or even just Mission Peoria, and it changed the trajectory of their life. It's just
There's a leader here
awesome.
that went to Mission Peoria. She attended our youth group here years ago, and she's brought a group from her church. I don't know where she's at. Amanda's
in St. Louis.
In St. Louis,
she's
she brought 13 kids, but she used to do Mission Peoria.
She was at the very first one before Dream Center took over.
Yeah.
So the history behind it is Riverside started it for about 2 or 3, maybe 4 years. And then I approached the youth pastor at the time and said, hey, this could be way bigger if it's under the umbrella of the Dream Center, because it's hard for churches to just come to another church's thing. Whereas the Dream Center, it's like this neutral zone.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when we did that, I remember that first year we had Riverside, Grace Prez, who John Vanny is still, he's sleeping near tonight. Like, he's been here all these years. I mean, he's gone home in between.
I saw him sleeping in a car.
And Northwoods, they all bought 50 to 60 students, and that was the first combined Mission Peoria. And so you know, that's a bit of the history of how it even got started, you know. So
Wow.
Crazy.
Vicky, why don't you just I know you talked a little bit already about what does it mean to you after seeing it from a distance, right? Because you would watch
it online.
Yeah.
So we would before we came to Mission Peoria, we'd always try and we'd watch it like the next day. And we'd always watch being, it'd be so good. At the time, we were actually youth pastors back in England, so we were like, it'd be so good to be a part of something like that. But then coming in this last year and then again tonight and experiencing it and being in the room is something completely different. I mean, for me, tonight, when I turned around, I was actually in the sanctuary as they opened the doors, and to see those kids just running in front of the door with that eagerness, just wanting to praise and worship tonight was just something amazing. And I love, Mission Peoria I don't think there's anything quite like it in terms of where you've got, like you said earlier, Rach, where you've got somewhere where you can come and serve in the daytime, so you're serving, but then at night time you are then getting that filling as well. And I don't think there's many camps that are actually do that. Have got that wide spectrum of things to do.
When we first started it, when we approached Riverside and said, hey, could we take this, the model that I had seen was actually from the UK, Soul Survivor. Soul Survivor would serve during the day and then have these big tent rallies at night. And, and that was the so stupid. And so that's what really inspired us to add it together, So.
But now I don't think there's many camps that do that.
No,
have both.
Because Soul Survivor finished as well. So.
Now.
Great. Well, gals, it has been great to have you on the first podcast of Mission Peoria 2024.
We feel honored.
Oh, well,
Thanks for asking us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming
And
on.
thank you for having me tonight.
Oh, no
Such
problem.
an honor.
No problem. We had fun. The kids got blessed, and it was really good. So.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you again. Let's see. Shall we see that camera up there? Why don't we say goodbye? Wave and say goodbye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Revival Town Podcast. Make sure you're following us on social media and remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, head on over to revivaltownpodcast.com.